Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it's just past midnight on Friday, October the 11th, which makes this the news for Thursday, October the 10th, 2024, day 961 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. I'm Peter Alexievich, and this is the Live at 5 from Kyiv, bringing you all the latest happenings from on the ground here in this European capital under siege. I see the peeps are coming in. Hey, Mike. Hey, Cool. Hey, Mel. Hey, Flip. Hey, Cheyenne. How's everybody doing tonight? Anthony Tommy Tom is here. Wind. Good evening. Hey, Bobby. Hey, Paul Smith. How do? Pedro the Amigo. Buenas noches. Hey, Neil. Lars, thanks for liking the live. I assume all 264 of those likes are yours. How's everybody doing tonight? So guys, today is day 961 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. And the attacks against Ukraine do not stop. And they are not, it's not what we're seeing on the other side, right? When we look at what the Ukrainians have been targeting over the last 3 weeks, what we see consistently are hits against air bases, ammo dumps, strategic military assets and infrastructure. We see the Ukrainians consistently eroding the Russians' ability to prosecute this war. And then what do we see from the Russians? We see glide bomb after glide bomb directed at residential buildings, at geriatric centers, old folks' homes. That's who the Russians are unaliving. In the last 24 hours, 8 civilians have been unalived by Russian attacks on residential areas, and 34 have been injured. This is an ongoing reality for the Ukrainian people. They are under siege by an enemy that has no interest in international rules-based order. In fact, that does everything it can to tear that order to the ground. I see Paul Molman is here, so I want to thank Paul. He is the sponsor of tonight's live. Everybody give Paul a shout out and thank him for sponsoring the live and his long-time support for this channel. We appreciate you, Paul. In last night's missile and drone attack, we saw 41 of 62 Shaheds knocked out of the sky by territorial defense and the Ukrainian Air Force. Another 14 were disabled with electronic warfare. So that's 55 out of 62. It's a great interception rate, right? Huge. These guys are saving the lives of Ukrainian civilians every day. The missiles that came through last night, it was not a good night. 8 out of 8 missiles got through. So 0% interception rate. 2 Iskanders, 1 anti-radiation KH-31P, which I don't recall ever seeing that one before. 2 KH-59s and 3 S-300s, all hit inside Ukraine. One of them hit the port infrastructure in Odessa, marking the 3rd grain shipment in 3 days to be struck by Russian ballistic missiles. Remember at the beginning of this war, Putin threatened the West. He said, if you guys help Ukraine or interfere with my plans in Ukraine, then you will, he threatened us with the 3 Fs, remember? He said he would cut off the fuel and Europe would freeze. He would cut off the food and the world would know famine. And then he threatened us all with fire, nuclear fission in the form of his nukes. He is back at it again at the food, hitting food resources leaving Ukraine for two reasons. One, to threaten the stability of food insecure global south and stop the Ukrainians from putting money in their own pockets. Because he's busy making money, stealing Ukrainian grain from the temporarily occupied territories and then reselling that on the open market. He's making that money, putting that money in his pocket. It's unreal that we do not support Ukraine more than we do in this fight when we think about what he's doing. Ukraine targeted the Kanskaya Air Base this morning in Krasnodar, home of the 761st Training Wing of the Russian Aerospace Forces. NASA firms data confirmed that the airport fuel depot, where the aviation fuel is stored, was hit and was burning. Now, further to that, we have noticed today that the local town was evacuated. Over 1,200 residents cleared out. Now, the only reason to do that, right, because if it's just fuel burning, fuel is going to burn and you're going to do your best to keep it under control. That's it. But what you worry about is secondary detonations from ammunition. So there must be some ammunition stored on this training base that the local authorities are worried about. And there have been reports of secondary detonations continuing through the day, indicating warehouses of ammunition may have been stored on the base and may have been either a secondary target of attack or a principal target of attack. But that fire continues unabated even this evening, 24 hours after the strike. Russian forces targeted residential areas of Zaporizhia this morning. 4 people were injured. Now, it wasn't just Zaporizhia, of course. Sumy was targeted. Mykolaiv region was targeted. Kharkiv was targeted. The attacks on civilians continue across the country every day. As we said, 8 people unalived, 34 injured in just the last 24 hours. Russia is on fire. There is just no two ways about it. Feodosia, the marine oil depot in Crimea, which is so critical to supplying gasoline, aviation fuel, kerosene, etc., to the Crimean Peninsula and the war effort there, is still burning 4 days after its attack. At least 10 oil storage tanks have gone up in flames. GRAU number 67 is still burning, and secondary detonations are still being reported at that site several days after the attack on it. Kanskaya Air Base is still burning, and the residents have been evacuated, as I mentioned. The Shahed warehouse is in Krasnodar Krai, is continuing to burn, and we're still hearing secondary detonations from what we believe to be some 400 Shahed drones that were stored at the base at the time that it was hit. I should mention that yesterday I reported in error that that was a drone strike on the Shahed warehouse. It turns out that that was a strike by the Navy using a Neptune missile, a modified Neptune missile. And so those Neptune missiles, they're supposed to be ship-to-ship missiles, right? But the Ukrainians had a modification program that lets them hit ground targets. And it appears that what hit the Shahed warehouse yesterday, and according to Ukrainian naval spokesperson, I want to say Pelenchuk is his name. I apologize, I did not write it down. According to the naval spokesperson, they hit it with a Neptune missile. And they claim that the warehouse and the drone training base there has been destroyed. The Russian 2025 budget is out. It includes a 25% increase in defense spending and a 16% reduction in social welfare programs. So what little help the Russian people are getting from their government is evaporating. That is not going to be good for the societal cohesion of the Russian Federation. That brings the total budget spend for 2025 in the Russian Federation on defense and internal security to 40% of the budget. 40%, 4 out of every 10 rubles that goes into the pot will be spent on this war and on internal defense. It's crazy, right? What does the U.S. spend on defense with our crazy $1 trillion defense budget? 13%. 13% goes to defense. All right. In Tourette's, the Russians have entered the eastern part of the city, and the fighting is said to be incredibly intense. Every doorway has a Russian or a Ukrainian soldier in it, and they are firing at the enemy. The fighting is house to house, it is hand to hand, it is door to door. And the Russians are advancing. We're seeing more scaled mechanized offensives all up and down the front line. So these are columns of armor advancing on Ukrainian positions. This is likely under pressure from the Kremlin to make as much territorial ground gains as possible in the Donbass before the mud season begins. And the reality is that the mud season is already beginning. We just had 3 days of cold, wet weather here in Kyiv. And on the front line next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it's going to be rain. Not only that, the overnight temperatures are going to drop to 0 degrees centigrade at night. The front line, if you've got a demoralized army now, when it is cold and wet, it is not going to help anybody. Mel is saying here there has to be a way to take the launch aircraft out while in the air. Well, here's the problem, Mel. Nobody in this war has air superiority. The Russians should have it, but their incompetence seems to be preventing them from maintaining it. What they're doing right now is they're launching these fighters with the glide bombs, and they release the glide bombs before they are in range of Ukrainian air defense. Okay? So the fighters can't be hit in the air because Ukrainian air defense can't get to them. And then the bombs themselves are dumb bombs. They have no engines. They have no heat signatures. They have nothing to jam electronically. That's the problem that we're having with this. Now, hitting the fighters, hitting the aircraft at the bases would make perfect sense, right? That's what you would do. The problem is, in order to do that, you need long-range weapons because the air bases are 100, 200, 300 kilometers back. Well, what weapons does Ukraine have that could hit them? Scalps, storm shadows, and long-range ATACMS, which they are prevented from using for long-range strikes into Ukraine by policy of DC, London, and Paris. And the Italians, for some reason. I don't know what component the Italians contribute to all of that, but the Italians are also have a say in this. What is the reason for that? The reason for that is because in the West, we are scared. We are scared of two things. And this is particularly true, I think, among the established diplomatic corps right? The people that have been doing this job for a long time. They have biases that favor Russia. They have seen Russia for their entire careers as a kind of necessary evil. We have to deal with the Russians. We have to deal with the Russians. We have to deal with them as partners. We have to deal with them as the threat they are, because they've got 6,000 nuclear warheads pointed at us. And so I think that the primary reason that these restrictions are on them is Italy is part of, no, that's not the one. Where'd it go? Oh, you must have blocked that guy, huh? Okay. So Jonas, look, I'm not going to argue this with you. You can say that all you want, that the one blocking it is the USA, and you can point your finger at us. It's bullshit. Those weapons, the Scalps and the Storm Shadows, are ITAR free. That means that they are made with no integrated American technology. None. If Paris and London wanted to go it alone and give permission for Storm Shadow and Scalp use, there is no legitimate reason they couldn't. Now, I applaud the fact that they are choosing to stay in the alliance. They don't want to fracture the alliance because the U.S., who provides fully half of the military aid to Ukraine, has a problem with it. But this idea that they can't do it without U.S. approval is nonsense. It's nonsense. And I'm tired of hearing it. All right. It's an excuse. It's an excuse. ITAR free. Jonas, stop. Stop right now. It's bullshit. The weapons are ITAR free. They may be getting that data now, and the U.S. may be providing it now for strikes inside of Ukraine, but they are not dependent on it. That is nonsense. Nonsense. CyberDoc, I'm with you. I think that once the election is over, if the Democrats secure the presidency, I think that we'll see much stronger language from Kamala Harris moving forward. I think she's avoiding the issue right now and focusing on domestic concerns because that's what wins elections in the U.S. But her comments on the war have been very strongly pro-Ukrainian. Even with a loss, Biden has 2 months. You are not wrong. But as a lame duck, he's going to find it hard to get things done. That's my concern. Okay. Somebody asked, who's the sponsor of tonight's live? The sponsor of tonight's live is Paul Molman. Everybody thank Paul for us. Paul's a longtime friend of the channel, first-time live supporter. If you'd like to sponsor a live, I would be very appreciative. And the PayPal is in the description. Okay. Scaled mechanized assaults all up and down the line in a desperate attempt to secure ground before the mud season comes. And again, the mud season is already beginning. In Kursk, the Ukrainians are taking advantage of that fact by digging in. They are digging in, right? The defender always has an advantage. And when the ground becomes too tough to move in, I don't see the Ukrainians getting thrown out of Kursk before spring at the earliest. And by then, I think the front lines will have collapsed in Ukraine. I think the Ukrainians are hollowing out the front lines right now The reserves are being sent to Kursk, so your backup isn't there when your meat grinder exhausts the guys at the front. The oil depots, you can't run tanks without gasoline or jet fuel, depending on the tank. What are they going to do when there's no diesel? Ammo. The Ukrainians have destroyed 3 of the 6 strategic ammo dumps, hardened ammo dumps, that are within 750 kilometers of Ukraine. Further to that, they've destroyed another 3 major ammo dumps, one in Mariupol, one in Voronezh, and one in Krasnodar Krai, and then the drone warehouse last night. The Ukrainians are doing exactly the right thing to curtail the Russians' ability to prosecute the war. Hey, Lars from Encino Tech is here. It is the Ukrainians hollowing out the Russian front lines. Yes, Bobby, that's what I believe. That's what I believe is happening. They're letting them break themselves. Now, hey, Paul Molman, are you just quoting me from last night in that figure, artillery consumption 8-1? Now, well, it would be 5-4 would be the actual ratio, Russian to Ukrainian, 5-4. Are you just quoting me from last night? I want to ask because that number is not confirmed. I only have that from one source. North Korean soldiers are here, right? The Guardian, I have this on my list. The Guardian reports that North Korean troops are in Ukraine assisting with the launch of KN-2425 missiles. So the North Koreans are here. Now, I don't know how that's not an escalation. I don't know how that's not something that everybody's talking about. I don't know how the presence of a communist dictator's troops on the grounds of a foreign conflict that they have no business being involved in are not a subject for everybody to be talking about. We're seeing this war expand. And this war is expanding because we have failed to deal with Putin and his aggression in the first place. That's reality. That's reality. Mud season affects smaller units or just heavy armor? Mud season affects everybody. When you're cold and wet and you can't get warm and the chill goes down to your bones, you're fighting off trench foot, which is a fungal infection of the feet. Nobody does well under those circumstances. I don't know if you've ever slogged through 2 feet of mud, a muddy field that you had to get across. It's not fun. It's a lot of work. And it's got to be much harder when somebody's shooting at you. I can't even imagine. Okay. In here, so we have confirmation today from the Russian side that the Russians are hunting humans in Kherson, that they are using Kherson and the civilians there to train drone operators. So according to Russian Zed bloggers, Kherson is great practice for young drone operators. Plus, it will break the spirit of the locals. They will desert the city and we will return to it. Now, the Russians are not merely bragging about this war crime, these war crimes that they are committing every day, but they are taking the video and publishing it on Telegram. You can see the videos of innocent civilians, family of 4 in their car, headed to church on a Sunday, followed by a drone that then impacts the car, killing the wife, killing the daughter, and sending the younger daughter and the husband to the hospital. This is the enemy. This is who we're up against. People who think it's fun to hunt human beings as practice for your efforts on the front line. It's insanity. It's absolute insanity. And think about the young men that are doing this, that are committing these crimes and high-fiving each other after they blow up a grandmother at a bus stop. It's outrageous. Umarov gave an interview today, and he said some really interesting things. So apparently we now know that the French will deliver 6 Mirage jets to Ukraine in the first quarter of 2025. Umarov said of these jets that the new weapons packages on them will deliver air superiority to Ukraine. Now, that's a staggering statement, given that the F-16s are already here. The F-16s are currently in use defending the skies over Ukraine from missile attacks. But it's the Mirages that Umarov is suggesting will give Ukraine air superiority. Now, I don't know what that means. We don't know what new weapons these are equipped with. They have never, as I understand it, the Mirage is not used for air-to-ground targeting. It's used for aerial combat. But apparently this batch will be suited for air-to-ground attacks. That's what Umarov is claiming. Umarov said also, we have good news about long-range weapons and robotic systems that the enemy will feel on the battlefield. So let's hope that an announcement about those long-range strikes is coming. He also said that the UK will deliver more AS-90 artillery pieces before the first of the year. UK and France are both training troops for the Ukrainian critical reserves. France will open weapons productions in Ukraine. And the French are in discussions with the Ukrainians. No, I apologize. The British are in discussions with the Ukrainians about sending trainers to Ukraine to train troops here in Ukraine on the ground, eliminating the costs of housing and feeding them in the UK, transport to and from, etc. Now, of course, the concern for the British is the lives of their own people here in a war zone. And it remains to be seen whether or not that training will ever happen on the ground here in Ukraine. But talks about it are open. So the Swiss have agreed to prioritize Ukraine delivery of man pads at the request of Berlin. So the Germans produce man-portable missiles, right, for anti-air, the shoulder-fired missiles. And the Swiss had an order in for a bunch of them. The Swiss have said, it's okay, we can wait. If you need to send them to Ukraine first, send them to Ukraine first. And so that was thoughtful of the Swiss, almost like you're taking sides, but not quite. You know, I should have led with this story. I should have led with this because this is big news. And it goes to the real heart of the bullshit of the Russian double standards. The Russians have moved 2 MiG-31Ks to Belarus. Now, the MiG-31K, if you're a follower of this channel, that may hit your ear as something familiar because those are the MiGs that carry the Kinzhal hypersonic missiles. That's how those are typically launched. Why would you put Kinzhal launching fighter jets in Belarus? Well, it seems to me that the idea is that you would want to do your bombing runs from someplace the Ukrainians can't hit your jets. Now, if you remember, Putin said that if F-16s were housed in Romania or Poland and performed bombing runs against Russia, that would put us in a state of war with NATO, right? But he has no problem using Belarusian territory for his offensive maneuvers. None at all. Remember, the attack on Kyiv, the invasion of Kyiv and the battle for Kyiv all came from the north, from Belarus, from Lukashenko's territory. Are we buffering? Is it just you, Jake? Hey, Jake. Everybody else is doing okay? Okay. So the hypocrisy of this, the double standard, the concern around escalation that paralyzes us in the West does not affect our enemies. And that's a problem. It's a problem. It's that paralyzing element of democratic institutions where they have to take the time to get consensus, because we do, right? That's important for us. That has emboldened the Iranians, leading to the invasion of Lebanon. These two things are connected. It's Putin whispering in the ears of the Iranian mullahs that we've got the West on the ropes now, boys. Stick with me. I'll get you more weapons. You want nukes? I'll get you nuclear technology. Just do this thing for me. Cause some trouble with Israel. Widen this war. Create chaos in the world. Drive up oil prices. Let's get some missiles to the Houthis so we can close the Suez Canal and drive oil prices up. And keep my coffers full. Whispering to Kim Jong-un, it's okay to send me weapons. It's okay to send me missiles. Here, you need missile technology? I'll give you missile technology. You need space technology, satellite technology? I got it. I got you, bud. I got you. Here's some food, too, so your people don't starve. Oh, by the way, I need engineers and troops in Ukraine. Pony them up, too. World War III has started, Mel. We're watching it expand now to include this axis of evil, Iran and Pyongyang. And Beijing, let's be honest, Beijing is not helping. They definitely are not. They are a problem. The MI5 chief says that GRU agents are committing arson, sabotage, and other acts of violence intended to sow chaos on the streets of Western cities, particularly those of Ukrainian allies. Meanwhile, in the wake of the Ramstein contact group meeting being postponed, we believe it has been postponed now to October 17th, 18th. Zelensky is on a whirlwind tour of Europe. He met with Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO, and Keir Starmer in London today. He then flew to Paris, where he met with Macron. From Paris, he went to Italy, where tomorrow he meets with the Pope, before flying to Berlin for a meeting with Scholz. Now, why this whirlwind tour at this time? It appears that he is selling the victory plan. The victory plan that he had intended to sell at the Ramstein contact group meeting on the 12th, He's getting out there ahead of it now, given the postponement of that meeting. And he's trying to meet with these guys. U.S. officials who are familiar with the victory plan have said that the victory plan makes an underlying assumption that Russia can be defeated on the battlefield. That is an assumption that we should all make, in my opinion. Because the assumption that everybody else is making is that Russia can't be defeated. They're indefeatable. You can't defeat Russia. No one can defeat Russia. Russia has inexhaustible manpower, inexhaustible ammunition, inexhaustible wealth. You can't defeat Russia. Bullshit. Anybody can be defeated, especially a pack of incompetent gangsters who feel so secure because they have all that other shit and they think it can never end. Bullshit. We're watching it end right now. I think about those hardened bunkers, right? That the Ukrainians hit with all that ammunition in them. We know that there were 6 of them within 750 miles of Ukraine. How many more does Russia have? They have another 18, all across the country, all the way to the Far East. Let me ask you a question. After 2.5, going on 3 years of war, how empty are the eastern bunkers? Is there anything left in those other 18? Russia's been firing off as many as 40,000 artillery shells a day. Now, that's the high from 2022, right? These days, it had been estimated up until this month that it was about 10,000 a day. 10,000 a day. I don't care what kind of ammunition stocks you have. I don't care that you got 5 million extra shells from North Korea last year. You can't fire off 10,000 a day or more and expect that they're going to last. That's not how math works. And I question how much longer these supplies can last and how long the logistics network can hold out. Ukraine has dealt serious blows to the Russians recently. And one of the things that we're seeing now, we did see 8 missiles come in last night into Ukraine. All of them avoided air defense, which worries me that air defense is becoming exhausted here. However, the number of missiles that Russia's firing at Ukraine is on a steady decline. It's on a steady decline. Oh, yeah, you have a couple days where there's massive attacks. But then after that, it's all drones, 1 or 2 missiles a night usually. Why is that? Why is that, Russia? Could it be that you're in short? 300,000 a month in the slowest month? No. 10,000 shells a day, 300,000 shells a month in the slowest month. There were months where it was 40,000 shells a day. 40,000 shells a day in this country. 40,000, what's that? That's 1.2 million a month. So you look at the North Korean ammo that came in, 5 million shells. They say that they ordered another 5 million, but we don't know how many of them have been delivered yet. That's what? That's 4 months worth of shells from the North Koreans. There were 750,000 shells in the Torpets ammo dump. At the current rate of consumption, that's 75 days worth, 2.5 months worth. It's estimated that Torpets removed from the Russian arsenal approximately 3 months worth of ammunition. That's huge. Eastern Russia is looking very enticing to China. Increasingly enticing. Hey, Mengai, if you're still here, pal, thanks for joining the Patreon. Mengai joined the Patreon yesterday. He's my first new Patreon guy in a while. And I've lost a bunch of Patreon supporters, guys. So if anybody can help me out and join the Patreon, that would be great. Okay. Orkistan is already fighting with sticks and stones. We've seen it. We've seen video of Russian soldiery who are down to nothing but a stick to try to beat away the drone that's coming after them. That's already happened. Oh, forget the maintenance. You know what they're doing, Flip, the Russians? They're pulling the barrels off of artillery pieces that are no longer any good and just swapping them out for the used up barrels and the banana peel barrels on the front lines. There's video of a Russian artillery yard, storage yard, that's basically been denuded. There's nothing left but some rusted out hulks. And there isn't a barrel left on one of them. Not one of them. Russia lost another Yak-130 training plane today. This is the second one of these that they've... So the Russians are in real trouble when it comes to pilots. They're running out of pilots. And so they're trying to train up a new generation. Training fast jet pilots is a dangerous thing to do. In normal circumstances, in the best circumstances, it's a dangerous occupation. Combine that with a shortage of Western parts and maintenance, and we've seen 2 Yak-130 training planes in Volgograd go down in the last month. The second one just today. This is according to Fighter Bomber, which is a pro-Russian Kremlin-aligned Telegram channel, who said that the crew ejected safely, but that the plane was lost due to technical malfunctions over Volgograd today. Okay, now somebody brought this up last night. They said, somebody asked last night, if you're here, identify yourself. How dangerous is a plane called a Yak? They're training planes. They're 2-seaters. You got an experienced pilot and a trainee. They're training fast jets. They're not, to the best of my knowledge, they're not used for combat at all, just for training combat pilots. Now, somebody last night had asked if a Patriot battery was hit by the Russians. And I said I didn't know anything about it. However, today I learned that the Russians are claiming that they took out a Patriot battery. Now, it's War Vehicle Tracker on Twitter says that it's unconfirmed, but he ran the video of the Russian claims. There is video of some kind of an air defense radar system in an open field being hit by a Russian Iskander missile. Now, could it be a Patriot? According to War Vehicle Tracker, it could be, but it's not clear. Independent analysts are disagreeing over the evidence. So it's not clear to us yet whether or not that was a Patriot. Freedom Doesn't Last. What a terrible name. The video shows it, unfortunately. The video doesn't show it. That's the thing. The image quality from that drone video is not good enough to tell you what you're looking at. Only that you see what looks like a radar hit. Now, could it be a Patriot? Could it be a decoy? It was out in an open field, Bobby. And we do know that the Ukrainians deploy Patriot decoys. Hard to tell. We just don't know at this time. We just don't know. Could it have been a Patriot? It could have been. We just don't know. Yeah, I don't think that's what your name implies. Your name implies that we're all doomed to lose it. Give it up, because there is no future. It doesn't last. That's a load of shit, pal. It's a load of shit. I don't like your name, and I think it says something maybe you don't intend it to say, but that it does. Kadyrov is now sending prisoners to Ukraine. So anybody convicted of crimes in Chechnya, you're not going to jail. You're going to the front line in Ukraine. Now, I had previously reported that at the drone factory in Tatarstan, it was staffed by Ugandan women. And the assumption, I'm with you, Jake, the assumption that I made at the time was that these women were the wives of Ugandans who had been tricked or conscripted into the Russian army to fight in Ukraine. No, there is new reporting that says that these women are victims of a human trafficking scam that the Russians ran on Ugandan women. So the idea was you take a test. If you pass it and can identify 100 words in Russian, you will be taken to Russia, given temporary citizenship, and given training in the hospitality industry. Given training in the hospitality industry so that you can get a job in Russia. These women took the test, they passed it, they were offered these visas to come to Russia. They went to Russia, they had their passports taken, and they were put to work in the drone factory making drones for the Russian war effort, is what some of the women who have recently escaped from Tatarstan are saying. So just another example of the Russians taking advantage of anybody that they can for their own ends. And make no mistake, they want to take advantage of you. They want you. They want your kids. They want to be able to buy and sell your children to make money for themselves. And that is not how the world works. It's not how it works. It's why we're seeing Russian civil society tearing itself apart at the seams. All right, we have about 10 minutes left. I want to thank Paul Molman, who is the sponsor of tonight's live. I want to thank the moderator team, best moderator team on the Tickety Talk, Cheyenne, Vanetta, PTJ, and Travis. I want to thank Lars, who has the Discord server and the Alexievich archive. And I want to thank Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps public group on the Book of Faces, where these live videos get uploaded just as soon as I can. And big thanks to Vanetta Larrett, who has our Google Doc share, where you can get email message templates to Congress, the White House, and the Senate regarding issues related to Ukraine. Thanks, Paul. Hey, Larry just joined the Patreon. Larry, are you here? Thank you, Larry. Thanks, Robert Chapman. Thanks for all your support. Appreciate it. Steve with a V. How you doing? Punch. One rose punch, huh? Yay, big spender. Did you see all the news about all African women lured to work in Russia? I didn't. I only saw that news about the Ugandan women in Tatarstan. So that's all that I saw. If there is more news about African women being lured to Russia, I am unaware of it, though I'm sure it's going on. Esteban, how are you doing over there? I'm doing okay, pal. It's tough. It's not, I mean, I don't have it hard like the people on the front line, right? Like, I don't want to complain. I have a nice life. I have a very nice life thanks to the Patreon supporters. And I try every day to give it back. I hope you see that. Well, thanks for dropping by, Flip. Give the wife my best. What's the drink, Earl Grey? No, it's not Earl Grey. It's Lovare Cleopatra's Night, I think is what it's called. It was a gift, actually. Is Rational Squirrel here? It was a gift from Rational Squirrel when she was in Kyiv. Yes, so thanks. If you're out there, cheers. Like the Ukrainians, I do not put milk in my tea. To me, it's a very normal thing. I've never liked it. But here, the Ukrainians are really turned off by it. So I'm glad that I drink it with lemon and honey. Walking the dog, Anthony. Right, the Ugandan women were promised higher education and ended up in drone factories. I don't think we'll see any northern lights here, not with the city light pollution. If I were up in the country or out in Ivano-Frankivsk maybe, but not here. Big D has an interesting question. Thanks, Flip. Value of the ruble down a bit more and their interest rate up again. Are we close to the Soviet crash? Close is a relative term. In terms of everyday life, no. In geopolitical and historical terms, yes. Russia cannot keep this up for the next 8 months. They can't. They're close to defaulting on their own debt. Very soon, that's likely to happen. And then the credit rating of the country is going to go to shit. It's already not good. Ruble recovered a little bit today. It was back up to 96.61 from 97, so minor. It's still worth about a penny now, the ruble. And interest rates, as you point out, are at 19%. Hey, Maddie Wright. Hey, Dive Hard. Kill Putler and end his regime. Put scotch in their tea. What a waste of scotch. Norway also do not use milk in tea. Indian chai style is very enjoyable, says Gary. Putin can use this underutilized honey pots to do drone essay. Bobby, I didn't understand that. I think there's a typo in there. I'm not getting it. Norwegian news says it will take several generations to fix the Russian economy. Yeah, because it's going to take several generations to fix the Russians. That's the real problem. These people have been so abused for so long. 500 years of serfdom, 80 years of the most evil experiment in engineering human beings that the world has ever known. And now 30 years of gangster-style violence and gangland nightmare. That's you don't recover from that societal dissolution in a year. When they stop receiving MAT for missiles, I don't know what that means. Are they done combining in Ukraine? I am on my last day here in Saskatchewan. I don't know what that means. Sorry. What's your take on the article that Zelensky wants to negotiate now? I don't believe it's true. Jack and tea with a splash of Captain Morgan's. That's Richard Hansen. Of course it is. Thanks for your 2 rubles worth. With all the information about Russia failing economy, how is it that they are considered unbeatable? Historical precedent. You know, it's often said you are your reputation, right? It's less about who you are and what people think you are. And Russia, Tsarist Russia, was an imperial state like Britain and Germany and France. But they all gave up their empires 100 years before Russia did. And when Russia was finally forced to give it up, they switched to a political system that was no different, where 10% of the power, or 1% of the power, 1% of the population held all the power and wealth. And everybody else was just an object to be bought and sold and bartered and used by those with the power and the wealth. That, it's the Enlightenment, the idea of human rights, individual worth, a bottom-up approach to governance never came to Russia. They don't have it. They have no consumer economy history. They have no Enlightenment philosophy. They are trapped in a 19th century vision of oligarchy, where there is no objective truth, only the word of the divine right of the king. Thoughts on Chinese nuclear subs sinking at port? Yeah, that was really something, wasn't it? I mean, that to me, because it happened immediately, right? They put the boat in the water, it sank. They raised it up, now it floats. Sounds like human error to me. Somebody left the baffle open, like some dumb shit like that. Very unfortunate. Those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. I'm sorry, Cheyenne, the only thing we learn from history is that we never learn from history. It seems to be a part of the human condition. Hey, Angela, long time no see. How you doing, doll? They had to prove it was a submarine. No, Russia's definitely beatable. Didn't Ukraine seize a ship? Can't remember what country it was. Did Ukraine seize a ship? Did Ukraine seize a ship? Yes. Yes. Now, wait, I'm not clear on the details. But if I remember, I did hear something about this today. It may have been a grain shipment that was picked up in Odessa, then delivered to Crimea, delivered to the enemy. And then the ship came back to Odessa for more, and the Ukrainians were like, fuck off. We're seizing the ship. Now, I think that that's what happened. I'll try to find out for tomorrow, and we can talk about it tomorrow night. Yes, Ukraine seized a Cameroon-flagged grain freighter. Illegal grain trades. Okay, so other people know about this. It was a Russian ship with an African flag. Yes, they did. Cargo ship from Crimea. Okay, so I had the basic details right. Okay, great. Thanks. Thank you, folks. Okay, it is after 1 o'clock in the morning here. So I'm going to close it up. I'm going to thank, guys, everybody. Look, Jonas Sugard, who I have a lot of respect for and is a longtime friend of this channel. Don't be mad at me because we disagree on this one point. And freedom doesn't last. You know, I'm sorry if you took that personally. It was just a gut reaction. Big thanks to Paul Molman, who was the sponsor of tonight's live. Thanks, Jonas. I appreciate it. Thanks, brother. Big thank you to Paul Molman, who is the sponsor of tonight's live. PayPal and Patreon information are in the description. Any help is appreciated. I really could not do this without all of you. And there's going to be some more stuff. James Aldridge, who joined the Patreon recently, was asking me some questions about the Patreon, and I'm rethinking that whole thing. So Patreon guys, look for some videos coming out in the near future on Patreon. Watch your email for notices of those. And then take a listen and give me your feedback, please. Dive Hard, that's one of the things, man. There is this dude, he's an American. He was in the International Legion. He was wounded in action. And he's sitting in a hospital in Venezia with nobody to talk to. Because there's not another American in the hospital. There's, you know, like we chat on Signal on a pretty regular basis. But the guy is down there. He's an American all alone, wounded in a foreign hospital with nobody to talk to. And I've never been to Venezia. And I would kind of like to go spend a few days with this guy. Play some cards, play some Risk, you know, whatever. And see Venezia and tell you all about Venezia. But I don't have the, right? Like you guys know, anybody who watches the Patreon knows what I live on every month. And so I don't have the extra cash to go. But if anybody wants, or if a couple people wanted to sponsor such a trip, I would be totally down with that. I think it would be good. It would be good for me to spend some time with an American because I get very little of that. And, you know, I think it would be good for him because he's got no Americans around. So I don't know. Papal sponsorship. A papal sponsorship. Why would it be a papal sponsorship? That's weird. Oh, a PayPal sponsorship. Yeah, absolutely. PayPal is what you're not papal. Let's leave the Pope out of this. He's busy. And I don't trust him worth a damn. Okay. So thanks, Dive Hard. It's a great question, pal. And I would like, you know, guys, look, if you don't have a Patreon account because you're not in a position to support me financially, I get that. But please do me a favor. Get a free Patreon account and follow me on Patreon because there is going to be stuff going up over there that you're not going to see here or anywhere else. Well, actually, Zelensky's meeting with the Pope tomorrow. Maybe we can ask Volodymyr to ask him for a few gold bars out of the basement. All right. So, guys, thank you so much for being there for me. Because you are there for me, I can be here for you. And I will see everybody tomorrow night. Thank you.